Okay, well, we're back for another video, and what are we doing today? Well, you can probably see the sun's out. I'll have to close those blinds in a minute, but we're doing a video and we're doing it on an Amiga 2000. Now, before we get started on this video, I need to have a talk with everybody. Now, let's get some disclaimers out of the way first. Now, I don't restore and fix Amiga 2000s for a living. I don't recommend people do it the way I do, and I'm relatively inexperienced with these. This was a donated one by a friend who is now deceased, and this is basically a data recovery job. Last time I did an Amiga video, people got really critical and really harsh in the comments, and I almost closed this particular YouTube channel as a result of that, because I'm not doing this to make a profit. I'm doing this to leave a legacy for my kids and my family, because I have multiple sclerosis and I might not be around as long as the rest of them. So, now, back off about the comments. If you do, I'm just going to pull this video. However, if you can leave constructive criticism that I can learn from, I'm all ears. Okay, so if you keep it civil, make your point politely, I'll gladly listen to you. If you don't, I'm just going to block you, ban you, and turn off comments, because I don't want to know about this again. So, all of that stuff aside, this belonged to the late and great Ken Anderson. If you go back through some of my old videos that I may or may not link in the description, you'll see some of the history of this. There were a few faults with this that I had thought were damage that I'd done. However, that was existing damage I found out later. The real-time clock in this never worked on receipt. It wasn't something that I damaged. I did have to grind back some circuit tracks that had been damaged from physical impact on the board, but I'm now told that that wasn't me. That was already the case. Likewise, the resistor that burnt out whilst I was trying to make a keyboard adapter for this was already burnt out, and it's a common thing that happens with these, so that I'm not feeling too bad about. Now, there's a few things I've already done with this, like I've loaded things on using a 1.44 meg floppy formatted as a 720 with the hole covered up with tape, because these use an unusual size of like 800K or 822. I'll look it up again. Again, I'm not too familiar with it. In any case, they use a different density of floppy disk. They can read a 720, but they can't write to it. Now, I've already installed Amiga Explorer on this, and the big machine that's up that way also has Amiga Explorer, and I've also made up an adapter serial lead, and this machine over the back here, which I'll angle up, this is a Dell T3500. It's still got legacy PCI slots, legacy serial and parallel ports, as well as PCI Express and the ability to run a Xeon CPU. It's very, very handy in that respect. So I've managed to make a parallel cable adapter that goes back to the parallel port on this, and I can directly access files off it. The problem I've got is they're using Power Packer, which is a compression system, and the 10 or 30 meg drive that's in there, something like that, is chock-a-block full of compressed files. So the last time I pulled a Power Packer file off to the PC, I had some trouble decompressing it. So I need to learn how to decompress these files, get them across on Amiga Explorer, and clear up room as I do it. But I don't want to mess with the original file system. So that all being said, let's connect this all up and get it happening and see what we can do with it. Alright, we're now looking at the back panel here. This is the serial adapter that I'd made, and we're going to plug it into the serial port. This has been a little while since I did this, so I don't remember if we did it via serial or parallel. No, it would be serial, because that's the only agenda that fits. The only similar one is a video port. Speaking of which, this one had, it does have a VGA video card in it with a mystery switch, which I think turns that port on and off. We'll go along up here. This is the video card here, and the fabled mystery switch. I can't remember if that's just an on-off switch for the video card. There's a lot of extra cards in this thing. I think there's a memory extension and a coprocessor. I've also got Mac emulator boards for this and everything as well. But if we go around here, this lead here is the one we were looking at. Can we peek around the corner here? Yes, that goes into the serial port. Not that we can really see with the contrast there. We have a genuine Amiga mouse. Well, I have a bunch of those, in fact. One of the things that was gifted to me was this box full of Amiga stuff, and probably about 400 floppy disks to go with this, mostly of games, some with viruses on them, all sorts of stuff. But we want to get into the SCSI drive that's in here. The other alternative is I might even be able to directly clone the SCSI drive with an adapter. Not sure how I'm going to do, because I don't have a lot of SCSI stuff. I do have an old DVR that's got 4 SCSI drives in it. I might be able to rob the SCSI card out of that and plug this directly into the PC through the PCI slot. Don't know yet. Let's fire this up and make sure it runs. Before I fire it up, I think I'm going to clean this keypad. It has this sort of silicon condom style thing over it. It's probably a good idea to keep on there. I don't really want to go through the process of ungluing this. It feels a little bit like sacrilege when it's, you know, deceased. Or previously. It was gifted to me before he died, but still feels like it'd be dishonouring his memory to remove that. So I'm going to gently apply some multi-purpose surface cleaner to a microfiber rag and give it a general wipe down. My monitor turned on to VGA mode, or my TV rather. I'm going to fire this up. I do so with closed eyes because I know the power supplies in these capacitors do die. So let's... Nothing crazy's happened. Alright, I did see a picture briefly flash up here. It says no signal. I guess we'll wait and see what happens. I do recall this used to take a minute or two to boot up. We'll be back once it's booted. Now this is an unusual message. I'm not used to it showing up in valid format. This worked on this before. It might be that switch I've got to flick. Alright, we have a white screen. There's a second switch on the back, which I think was connected to that coprocessor board. Alright. Cool. Alright, we've got something in here. Yep, and there was a whole bunch of custom stuff done on here. This guy was a whiz with all this sort of stuff, so yeah, we'll let it get Workbench up. And I forget how quickly these things boot up. Can't help but feel computers have got slower over the years. Alright, yeah, this was Power Packer that's on here. So, alright, I've got to do some homework, and I've got to get Amiga Viewer, or whatever it's called again, up and running. Alright guys, so I'm sorry about the background noise. I've got the air conditioner running at the moment. It's pretty bloody hot in here. Okay, so I had to go over my own videos to refresh my memory as to how I did this last time. But we went to Workbench, we went to Tools, and then we went to Commodities, and within there is CrossDOS, and that's the FAT, or file allocation table, partition translation program that lets me read off the 720K floppy. Now last time I did this, the instructions instructed me to put it into RAM disk. I think I'm going to put it on the hard drive this time because I'll need to do this more than once. So let's get CrossDOS happening to start with. Alright, at this point I can pick a drive I want it to happen to, and the character set translation. That's fine. Now last time I did this, I plugged this into a video capture card and I got just black and white footage, which is horrible. So at this point I'm trying 4K onto a screen. I don't know how well it's coming across for you guys, but yeah. Alright, now we've got CrossDOS. Let's see if we can access our disk. Now, one of the advantages of running one of these old Dell workstations is it actually has a floppy drive port on it. I'm going to try DF0 because that's the one that read the disk before. We'll see what we can do with it up on the Amiga. I'm not sure how well you can see this, but we're going to open AM2000-4. That's the disk that I wanted. And got ACU on here. That's not what I recall putting on here. Yeah. Okay, we've got DF0, which is, I think that's the floppy disk I wanted. Okay, let's try swapping this to the other disk drive. Okay, so the AM2000-4 is probably not the one that I had. And I did check that disk in the PC. It does have what I want. We go, here's DF1 come up. Alright, so let's do... Can we go full Dansk International ASCII 7, I think is what we're using. I think we've got it right here. I'll have some muck around and see what I remember doing. I've got to check my notes again. Okay, so I went back to my videos and realised I had to select this. I had to right click and show and all files. That's what I had to do. Now we've got Amiga Explorer happening here. I need to move all this across. So now I've got to figure out how to do that. I think I just highlight everything and drag it across. I think, and I'm just going to mess up the desktop here because this is a recovery process anyway. We need the INFs as well. I'm probably doing this wrong and somebody's probably screaming in the background, no, that's not how you install the program onto Amiga Explorer. I think that's a game I tried to copy at one point. I don't think I can run this like Windows. Yeah, there's a problem. So I think I'll put all that in the RAM disk and follow my previous instructions. After refreshing my notes, I realized I had to copy everything to RAM disk, and then I've got to run a little setup in the command line interface here. It says object is in use. I may have already installed this. Let me go see. Alright, so I just went to run Amiga Explorer straight out of RAM drive, and it said Amiga Explorer stopped. Alright, so Amiga Explorer is started. I've restarted that, and it's disappeared. So I think it's in memory now. Let's see if I can talk to this thing. Alright, so some of my problem here might also be the baud rate on the PC, and I think I'm going to set that to 192. I think that's correct. Let's go over here. 192, buffer size, RTS, CTS. I think we're going to go advanced here. We are using buffers. We're using COM port 1. Using FIFO compatible buffers. I think that's right. I'll play with these settings till I get it right. Flow control. No, I don't think we needed that. Okay, let's try Amiga Explorer. Let's hit our shortcut key here. And I'm not going to bother blurring out IP addresses anymore because I've removed all the sensitive ones. Now, how did I get to this again? It was in here somewhere. This PC had Amiga here, Amiga Explorer right there. Let's run this. Ha! It's working. Alright, now I can copy some files. So yeah, I had to copy to RAM disk, and it was already installed anyway. I just needed to run that command line interface to wake it up. Or maybe I didn't, I just had my baud rate wrong. Yeah, but anyway, as you've probably guessed from this video, I'm not a seasoned or experienced Amiga user. I've been given one, and I'm dealing with it as best I can. And it's now, yeah, I'm dealing with the son of the person who donated it to me, who really wants to see some of his old stuff. They were somewhat estranged for quite a while because of a relationship issue that I don't fully understand, but we won't go into that. Now I need to combat the power packer problem. I'm going to see if I can extract some of these things on the Amiga and then copy them across the power packer. I now need to learn what kind of file manager is on here and figure out how much free space is on here and whether or not I can get away with that. So just as an example, I've gone into the work folder, which is most likely to contain what we want. I'm grabbing a couple of info files across, and they're coming across reasonably reliably. So I think this will go quite well. I'm hearing the floppy drive go and stuff like that at the moment, but I think that's on the PC side of things. Anyway, yeah, I'll work out the power packer problem in a minute. I seem to recall having this problem before. When I tried to do too much in one go, it would drop out on the COM port. I think that could be buffers getting full. I'm not sure, but we'll keep trying. Now, I'm pretty sure my problem was the screensaver here, also known as blanker. So yeah, I've set that to 9,999 seconds. We'll see if that makes a difference. Alright, so I managed to get my file transfer going again. We'll see if it drops out. In the meantime, I've got a bunch of these Power Packer files. Some of these are .docs, which I'm pretty sure a later version of Word might being the key word here, understand. But I found something on AmiNet that apparently should be able to unpack them. So we're going to try that next. Alright, so I found I had to use Amiga Depacker in a command line in Windows, but it appears to have been successful. I just don't know where it put the file now. Okay, so I thought I'd found my test file, but in actual fact this is a test document that was already there. But this one isn't power packed. And so we're seeing some stuff that was actually written by him, not much, but we're getting somewhere in terms of the data recovery. So still got a bit to go with the Power Packer thing. I'm going to play with it for a bit and do some learning. So I used another syntax which produced an output file in this directory, but it's an empty output file. But we're making progress. Okay, so after reading some of the literature that comes with it, it tells me that it does try to overwrite the original file in place. So all I've done is take the .pp extension off here. I'm going to load this in modern Word 365. And guess what? We have a decrypted file that we can read. We have a win. Okay, his son's going to be really happy. There's this friend of mine, he died rather unexpectedly after some surgery and was not really prepared. I guess he was as better than most people just every day, but wasn't expecting to. So everybody's happy to see all the old stuff that they thought they'd never have access to again. So it's very good. Alright, just for some people that are sort of struggling with this, you might be able to learn from my lesson here. Sorry for the jump cut there, I had to sneeze. Now, the actual use of this is actually relatively simple. You just go Amiga Depacker, and then you give your file name after it. And that will find it, detect the compression format, and rewrite it to the same file name. Not a practice I like, but so certainly make a backup of your files somewhere else before you use Power Depacker or Amiga Depacker. Now there is a function in here that I'm reading from the syntax description that will let it find all the files in a documentary or in a document. I'm getting tired and I need dinner. Let's try this again. Okay, so for anybody that might be a little struggling here, this is my learning process. So I found you simply run Amiga Depacker and then cite the file or even the location of the file with, as I've done up here, and given it the full directory name. That works just fine. Now there is a way that I'm reading that you can actually have it detect all compressed files in a folder and decompress them automatically. So I'm working on that, but I haven't got the syntax right yet. Anyway, I'm still copying stuff over, and I'm moving the mouse down here occasionally to try and keep it awake, because when that screensaver comes up, it kicks the transfer off. And you can see I'm using Google very heavily here to help me. So this has got a bit to go yet. Okay, so new mistake worked really well. I just told it to run Power Packer, gave it the location, and when it come to the file name, I just substituted with a wildcard asterisk, and it's run through everything in the directory, found it, identified it, unpacked it, and resaved it. Let's see if we can open any of this. Alright, so I'm starting to find interesting little anecdotes here, like a section about Sir Edmund Barton. These are obviously all the different Prime Ministers of Australia. Yeah, there's lots of little bits just hidden away here. I'm hoping I'll come across something that's meaningful to the family and friends eventually, but we've got a bit to go. And there's a lot of foreign file formats on here. Hopefully when all this is done, I'll rip that hard drive out and I will clone it with a SCSI card or something to a partition that I can mount on a PC and emulate all of this. But anyway, I'm going to keep going. I've got I'm doing about half a meg at a time, and it's taking about 8 to 10 minutes per 600 kilobytes. So we're going to be here for a while for 40 meg. Alright, so my transfer kept dropping out halfway through, and I couldn't work out why. It was every time the screensaver come up. Now, it wasn't Blanker, which we have up here. I'm pretty sure he's using this thing called Super Dark, which has a whole bunch of various different interesting screensavers and whatnot in here. It's a pain in the ass. So I think we've got a tempo here. I don't know what tempo must be for the music. We have a task priority. I've moved that from what was 0 to -10. I've gone from one extreme to the other. We'll see if that works. I don't seem to be able to find any other settings in here. Oh, hang on, I've got parameters here. Let's try parameters. Number of objects, 6 and 3. Now we can test. Let's see what this does. Oh, that must be in the flying toasters. A lot of stuff you see in Windows and modern operating systems, well, a lot of that stuff started with Amiga. Alright, so anyway, we've dropped the task priority way back, so hopefully it will drop that. I'm just going to go back and make sure it's saved the settings. I don't trust just exiting out of these things. Let's keep the task priority low. Let's see if I can try this transfer again. Okay, so this big folder I've decided to copy is going to take about 28 minutes. But crucially, and I must have just bumped the mouse, crucially the screensaver was running when I got back in here, and the transfer hadn't dropped. So this will be interesting. Alright, we seem to have found our way into a documents folder in here. It's got stuff from 1994 through till 2001. He was still using this in 2001. Well, I guess he loved his Amigas. Or he did tell me that. But yeah, at some point there's some letters and stuff in here too, which I won't be showing on screen. But there's some personal letters to different people, and there's some stuff from his business called Right Ideas, and those kind of puns are right up his alley. So yeah, looks like we might get something good enough to show the family. Right, so there's only like 4 files in this folder, and the first one was job leads, and it took a full 2 minutes to copy for a text file. I think there's a lot of job leads in there. But yeah, we're copying some stuff across. It'll be interesting to find out what this is. Anyway, I'm going to call this quits for now. I'm going to let this copy overnight. We'll be back in the morning to see if we found anything meaningful. I'd just unencrypt some stuff whilst it's transferring, and it found some encrypted stuff. So interestingly enough, Amiga Deephacker can decrypt stuff. It's brute forcing the key right now. Well, handy to know. I'm curious to know how many cores are actually working on this at the moment, actually. How far does that work? Let's go bring up my task manager here and look at my performance. Well, clearly, all my cores are working pretty hard at this at the moment. Well, okay, I guess I'll let it go because my dinner's here. Yep, that's my doorbell beam going off. So I went off and had my dinner, and that took about 15-20 minutes, and I come back and one key's done, and there's another key going, so we might find out what was in that file. Oh, that's job leads. Any wonder that's encrypted. But I guess being in the 90s, it's probably out of date by now. Well, I did discover something. This might be useful. Alright, so it's about 9 o'clock the next morning, and it's been decrypting and depacking all night and transferring. It did about a 4-hour transfer and then dropped out. So yeah, I'm going to keep going. This is going to be a long-term process. But I'm going to call this video here because there's just going to be so many snippets of decrypting and undoing everything, and just this is going to be such a long process. But we've got the general idea. I've also worked out he's got a couple of common passwords he's used, and these are the hexadecimal variation of that. Of course, I'm showing you that because there's not much use to you without the actual files themselves.
But there's a lot of address lists here and stuff like that too, so there might be somebody in there that needs to know he's no longer around. We don't know. We'll get there. Anyway, I'll see you on the next video. Well, I'm making good use of multitasking ability here anyway. I've got a few of these going, and yep, I've got plenty more to go. Well, I'm certainly making the use of 12 cores whilst I'm decrypting all of this stuff. Even though it's only occurring in about 1 or 2 different passwords, the software doesn't afford me the ability to actually specify keys to try first. So I've just got to let this run. But we're getting there. Alright, so I've decided that I'm going to get some extra cooling happening here. Partly because all these cores are running kind of hot right now. So yeah, I'm really giving this CPU a hiding at the moment. So yeah, and I think my power usage that's normally at about 350 watts is up at about 500 right at the moment. So yeah, we're working hard on this. So after some adjustment to fan positioning, got the temperatures down a little bit, but not ideal, but we're just going to leave it at that because it's settling down a little bit. So hopefully some of these encryptions or decryption scripts slow down a little bit. I'm just going to let them all go now. Alright, well, I've had to cancel a few processes. I will restart them later. Yeah, I was starting to get cores bouncing off 80 degrees and I'm having a hard time getting them down. So I've cancelled a few. I'm letting it run a little more efficiently for the time being. I notice the other transfers have, or the other encryption scripts have sped way up now. So I think we'll just take a smaller chunk at a time on this one. So, interesting bit of information I discovered. I just got this core temp program, and I realised it's discovered my old G16 keyboard. And it's putting up all the core information on my keyboard. Very handy. Alright, so I've got sick of waiting for all this stuff to happen, and I think I've got a better way to do this as a batch run. So I'm using a thing called Karen's directory printer, and that lets me create a directory list of all the folders within what I've backed up. And so that spits out, when I've selected the way I want, it spits out a list of folders here, along with a whole bunch of other stuff, files as well, which I told it I didn't want. But I can chuck this over into Excel and I can trim out the information I don't want, and I can concatenate all my other scripts and all my other commands into a batch script and have it just run through recursively in one go. Alright, well, I've got everything copied and pasted into an Excel spreadsheet. Now I need to go through and filter. When I don't screw the focus up here, I need to filter out all the unnecessary stuff. So I'm going to sort by name based on the first column, and then I'm going to delete what I don't need. Now I apologise, I haven't gone to the trouble of getting a screen capture device happening for most of this, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles at this point. Now we want to get rid of the files out of this because our syntax doesn't call for files, it just calls to check for a folder. So there's 4497 files. We'll get rid of all that data, and we should only be left with folders, I believe. Let's go right to the bottom here. We've got totals to get rid of as well. So let's get rid of totals. Oh no, they are folders. Okay. Folders are known as totals. There we go. We'll just scroll through all these. To think I've done all this on serial. Oh, here we go. So these are totals, and then we've got it in folders as well. Okay, now let's just sort everything to the top here. I'm going to go up to sort A to Z, and hopefully it should have put everything to the top. I'll select that column, sort A to Z, and it should. Okay, it hasn't expanded the selection. Yay, so let's select everything, sort A to Z. Now that might work. There we go. Now we've got our folders up the top here, and now I can start inserting my syntax in here, and then we can export this as a batch file. Right, so what we're going to do next, I could do concatenate function, I believe it's called, and I could join all these columns, but I might want to come back at some point and actually make a change. So what I'm actually going to do is in this column here, I'm going to go equals A1 plus A2, plus B1 plus C1. Okay. So where are we? Oh, I've done B2. Oh, yeah. Yeah, plus B1. Okay, I need to work on my formula here because it's trying to do it as a mathematical function. I think if I put this in parenthesis, brackets as some people erroneously call them, it should add them as a text string. Okay, give me a minute to work this out. So the next step, whilst I could concatenate all of these cells into one, I might want to make a change. So what we're going to do here is we're going to just join all the text strings, so A1 plus or A1 and B1 and C1, and that should result in the outcome of that, which is what we want. And you'll notice with Amiga Depacker I added a white space on the end so that my string comes out correctly. Now all I'm going to do here is just run down and have it automatically recalculate that formula for every cell. Just drag all the way down here, keep going, that should be somewhere near the bottom, and it should, if I've done everything right, yep, calculate everything separately. So now I can just copy and paste that output to a text file, modify it, and we'll turn it into a batch. So we'll go from there. So the next bit we've got to do here, just got to add a little bit of extra scripting here. So I've got Amiga Depacker on E drive here. So we're going to go one directory at a time here. CD software. Oh, I've got it in the same line. Going to go to software, and then we're going to go to Amiga 2000 stuff. I think it's Amiga 2000 stuff. I better check that in a minute. Got Amiga Depacker. I think that's the directory structure. Will go in there, and then it should jump straight in and run all of this stuff. And then I want it to pause so that I can see that it's finished, rather than just crashed out. And I think it was just wait or pause. It's been a while since I've needed to do that, but it'll pause and wait on command. So let's just save that. Let's just check my directory structure. So it would appear I got everything correct, and pause function is okay. So let's close that, and our depacker script I'm going to just simply rename as a batch file. We're going to do that, and excuse my apprentice making weird noises in the background. She's having some kind of a malfunction. We're not sure what that is, but anyway, now we should be able to just run that specifically, and it should just zip through every folder and check for all the files. And when it comes to one that it needs to decrypt, it can just sit there and decrypt it. Now I can walk away and let this thing just do its thing, and it'll run indefinitely. In the meantime, I've got to work out how to speed up the fans on the front of that Dell T3500 to keep it a little cooler. I might even get some Arctic Silver compound. Anyway, I've got to get on with the job of backing up all these files.
Alright, well, even with the air conditioner running full blast towards the machine, cores 4 and 5 are still regularly bouncing over 80 degrees, and I think I need to pull this machine out of service and give it a clean out and redo the thermal paste. I think that might help it. So I've got to take everything out of action for a little bit. So I've stripped everything off the back, and we're going to take it out and dismantle it. And I might remove this stupid bracket because when I updated the video card, that doesn't close anymore. But that doesn't matter. Let's get this out. removed from service, and I'm going to take some time here to try and fit my floppy drive properly, if I can get this stupid thing out. But let's get some air into this. Alright, so I've lifted the heatsink off, and yeah, clearly the compound's a bit dry. And same on the CPU here. Come on, focus. So yeah, I'm going to have to replace that. I don't have the good Arctic Silver stuff, but I do have this. So I'm going to give this a clean up and reapply that paste. Right, so we've got this back in situ. We've got all our cables plugged back in. I took the liberty while I was there of removing two of the 2 gig sticks I had and putting in a couple of bigger ones that I had spare that are a little bit faster. I don't know if it will recognize them or not. Just doing a last minute check here, and I think my leads come out. You guys thought this was going to be an Amiga 2000 video, didn't you? Alright, alright, we'll put all that back in. See if we can let the magic smoke out. Well, I'm hearing the floppy drive do self-check. Hearing the drive spin up. I'm not hearing anything go wrong, and I'm not seeing any magic smoke here. Let's just move over to the main screen. I've got the Dell logo, that's good. Let's just check how much RAM's in here. Because I don't know how big those sticks were. I think they were certainly bigger than 2 gig. It might have been 8 gig. I know this machine will take up to 24. Alright, we'll be back. Alright, so I've got the system check up, and it looks like I've got 16 gig of memory installed. Yeah, well, I had 12 before. So those 2 sticks are put in DIMMs 1 and 4, both 4 gig. Alright, I'm not sure which channel. I probably should have put them in offset channels like 1 and 3, so they're on opposite channels, but I've got active memory channels of 3. You know what, I'll just let it work itself out and we'll see what happens. One other thing I'm going to do here, I'm going to disable the turbo boost, which is kind of like an automatic overclock. This allows it to run a little bit over speed, and I think that might be where some of my temperature issues are coming from. So let's just see if I've got my general system status. I don't know if it tells me temperature in here. I guess we'll find out soon enough. Alright, well, it hasn't thrown a fault yet, so let's see what happens. Let's let it do its thing and get back to the Amiga stuff. So I'm just checking core temp, and just after I've booted this up, things are idling considerably cooler now, about 46 to 48 degrees, whereas before they were idling around about 70. So I think that heatsink compound certainly made a difference. I'm going to run things up again in a minute and see how that goes, but we need to get on with the job of both decrypting and also transferring the rest of the stuff off this Amiga. So, PC stuff aside, let's whiz around here and let's get this Amiga happening again. Where's our power switch? Right there. Let that fire up, and then I'll have to put Amiga Explorer back into the RAM drive, but luckily I managed to back that up off the RAM drive so I can throw it straight back across over Amiga Explorer. Oh wait, I need to run it first. I just seem to recall I put this into boot, so maybe I won't need that. And it's some hot weather, so I'm enjoying some Zupa Dupas at the behest of my apprentice. So yeah, alright, let's see, I've got to do the cancel thing there and let it boot Workbench and all the other custom stuff that Michael had in boot. Alright, let's get on with it. Alright, so crucially this time I've gone to Utilities, Commodities and Cross-DOS. I've enabled that. I'm reading off my floppy again because Amiga Explorer gave me a comport error, which means Amiga Explorer is not running on that machine. So what I've done this time is I've actually dropped Amiga Explorer into the Commodities folder. Okay, so that is not
or into the utilities folder rather. For some reason it's not running, so I'm going to chuck it on the RAM disk and see what happens. Okay, a couple of nifty things just here. My temps have dropped back to about the 30s now. They're doing really well. If you're running a floppy drive in Windows 10, it won't actually show up. You have to manually reference it as, where are we? We'll move this down where you guys can see it. Go away COM port. I don't care. Alright. You have to manually reference your floppy drive as /. It's backslash because the top of it is behind the top. Okay, this is not going to work because I'm in a folder it doesn't like. Let's try this. I think we just need to do /, in Windows 10. I always want to put the slash. I'm still stuck in DOS days. Okay, go away COM port problem. Alright, so we're back into our drive, and it looks like we've got all our Amiga Explorer stuff in here anyway. Crucially, we don't have the actual program itself, and I think that's because I moved it to the RAM drive. Let's recover this again. So I took a copy of everything in the RAM drive. I'm going to copy most of that back onto the floppy drive, because I had a thought that when I dragged and dropped it was going to move and not copy. So yeah, there's a couple of things in here that weren't already on there. You know what, just replace them all in case anything's corrupt. We'll put all this back. It's the only tedious bit. It takes a bit of time to get this set up again. Wow, 104 bytes a second. I realise we've been spoilt. Alright, that's the floppy drive put back together again. Alright, so I decided it wasn't worth installing it manually. I didn't have the time to figure that out or to learn it. Again, some of you Amiga enthusiasts and purists are probably screaming at the screen, but you know what, I don't care at this stage. Anyway, I chucked it in the RAM drive and I forgot to actually run the setup. So it should be running now. Let's see what happens. Okay, so I've just double-clicked Amiga Explorer off the side here. I know this is not an ideal screen position. In fact, we might fix it a bit. I've just heard the Amiga drive just click over as if it's doing an index. Error reading COM port. Maybe I've got to change my COM port settings again. Alright, it's going error reading COM port, but my COM port is set to 192, data bits 8, stop bits 1, no flow controller parity. That's correct. Let's check what the Amiga's set to. Alright, so I'm having to do this all over again. Having to write everything over the serial port back to the RAM drive. And then I'll recreate my floppy again after that. Anyway, we'll get there. Okay, and we're back in again. Alright, so my problem was, when you drag and drop in Windows, it's usually a copy action when you're between drives. In Amiga, that's a move action, so it actually moved the application to RAM drive and lost it. So now I've had run the setup again, got it to copy it across via serial to the RAM drive, set it all up, and now I've put the application on a floppy for backup. Sounds like my apprentice just broke something. Alright, and we're back in action. So now, interestingly enough, if I move over this little thing over here, we can see that my temperatures for the two hottest cores are now sitting around the same as all the rest, except for core 0. They're all hovering around about the 40-degree mark, average, maybe 36 for some of these. A whole lot better than 80. Alright, so yeah, I think probably disabling that auto overclock probably helps a little bit too. So, back to it. Alright, so I'm going through some of the old emails that are on here that have just recently decrypted. And yeah, he's here talking about getting a 180 meg Fujitsu SCSI drive working in this very same Amiga. So that's interesting. Apparently it doesn't have the 120 meg in there now. It's only got the 40 meg quantum. But yeah, you might like to pause and have a read of this one. Then there's another mail message here. His excitement about purchasing a video backup system. Seems a little bit interesting by today's standards. You know, when you can buy something for $5 off the net and plug in whatever you need.
Just interesting, what the nice little snapshot of the times. And I do remember actually really wishing I could record video on my computer, and it was quite amazing when I had a 486 and I was able to actually play some video off a CD. But yeah, interesting. Alright, well I didn't catch this on camera, but it had a software failure and restarted. And now I've got to load everything back into RAM drive again. Yay. Did it as I was trying to grab the last few files out of a data link folder, and it was having notorious errors there. Maybe there's a disk problem in that particular area. So given that there's not, I've done all the mostly the sentimental stuff at this point, I think I'm just going to take what I've got in that folder and move on. So I finally lost my cool with the stupid keyboard condom and removed it. Now I can type like I should have. Now let's try this again now. Oh, so much easier. Setup. Oh, so much easier. And I can actually see the keys. It looks like a Virgin keyboard at this point. Even got the proper WordPerfect thing on here. We've got some of the double-sided tape that's still on here, but you know, we'll be right. Now, okay, that's waiting for a response. I better hit the OK button over here. Alright, we'll get there. Alright, so we had a black screen on the Amiga, and we got this error message. I think we might be getting towards the end of what we can get out of this machine this way. So I'll try another time, but otherwise I might just leave it parked until I can get a SCSI card worked out. So Amiga Explorer doesn't want to know me now. It's whinging about some sort of conflict of resources on this end. I'm going to have to restart the machine to fix that, but I'm still decrypting files. Yeah, over here. This is what it's saying. Yeah. So I'm going to need to just let these decryptions run. They've been going for a couple of hours now anyway. Even though I know what the code or what the key is for these, there's no way to tell it to check those keys first. I've got to let it run all the way through for the whole lot. So I'm just going to let it do its thing, and I'm going to call it quits for the day. It's now like nearly 5 o'clock on day 2. I've been at this quite a while now, so yeah, going to call it quits for a little bit. So I'm down to grabbing the last files by floppy disk. Yay! Alright, so we suffered another system failure, and so I'm getting what I can off this floppy disk now. It may well be the last thing I can get off this. So I made a good effort, but I'm going to leave it cool off for a bit now. Maybe there's some thermal expansion happening. We'll figure it out later on. Okay, more boring, tedious, repetitive stuff. I'm about to run a batch script on the new files that I've put in, actually the whole lot in one go. Hopefully this should do a lot of fancy text up the screen. Let's full screen this one and see what happens. This could be a bit satisfying. Oh, and it's stopped on something that is decrypted, and that's the BBS buffers I'm already working on in another script. Alright, well, we got a bit stuff done, so let's work on some more. Alright, this could be a slightly satisfying part of the video. I've run my script that now includes folders for all the files that I've copied to date, except a couple that I'm already working on over here that I'm still decrypting. It should exclude those. So let's see what happens. Oh, I found another one that's encrypted. And that's in dial-up stuff under docs. You know what, I'm just going to leave that go. I'm not going to do much more with this tonight. It's now 8:30 again. I've been working on this for quite a while, so yeah, we'll see if we get there.
Alright, so it's the next morning again. It's now Sunday, and the decryption rather is still going. We'll leave this go until it gets done.
Alright, so it's now 7:30 on Sunday, 7:30 PM. We're still decrypting stuff. We've got a bunch of useful information out of this old Amiga.
enough to send on to the family. And we're not sponsoring 7-Up either. So this video is probably quite long in the tooth now. I've been at this for days, and I'm going to be at it for probably a couple of weeks more. I have fired this up a couple of times, and it did fire up nicely, and I've had successfully the serial connection open just a few times, and it keeps dropping out. I'm not sure what it is I need to do to stabilize that. I've got to open it up and take a closer look. But I have got about 40 to 50 meg of stuff on here once it's been depacked, because it was stuck with power backup. And yeah, there's enough there for posterity's sake at least. The next step will be to remove this drive, find myself a SCSI adapter somewhere, and just re-image that whole drive and load it into an emulator. Once that's done, I can probably part with this. And for those of you who just fell off the chairs going, why would anybody want to part with this? Well, for one, I've got a $5,000 car, or $5,000 error with the main vehicle to repair. I need money somewhere. Secondly, the whole agreement I had with the original owner while he was still with us was that this would be passed on for a little bit of profit after I backed up some data. This all, of course, depends on whether the family, now that he's gone, doesn't want it back. We're quite willing to return it to them. The other thing is, this has been a constant source of stress for me, simply because of the criticism I received on the first videos, because I didn't do to this what the purists wanted me to do. And I nearly took it out the back and put a bullet through it and videoed it. So yeah, lesson learned, guys. If you're gonna pick on me about the way I do stuff, I'm just gonna get rid of it. Anyway, spite aside and frustration aside, I hope you have enjoyed this video. And look, discuss in the comments, but keep it civil, because you know what, I'm not doing this for money. And the stress and stuff like that really negatively affects my health with the conditions I've got. So again, because this is an Amiga video, keep it civil, guys, or I'm just going to start blocking people and I'm going to start pulling videos. It's not worth the stress to me. This whole channel is not worth 2 cents to me. However, that being said, I'm working on a Patreon channel because people keep bugging me because they want to give me money, and at some point I'm just going to relent and go, okay, give it to me. The general idea with that will be that I'll probably give you guys access to the source files and CAD stuff for a lot of the projects you see in my videos, and that seems like a fair exchange in my mind. But anyway, discuss in the comments if you really want. Correct me on methods. By all means, give me input as to what might be causing this problem. This one, it's to help a deceased family, or the family of the deceased that once owned this. So I'm sure they'd be grateful if we can work together and get any more data off this. But anyway, we'll see you in the next videos, and yeah, I hope this has been interesting at least.